I just drove here from Vegas, so I'm super excited to be here in Los Angeles, the city that Vegas was actually made for, so this is a lot of fun. Kind of the one thing Owen wanted me to talk to you guys about is really kind of where I came from, because at least like half of you guys saw my Snapchats or saw my videos and stuff and saw kind of where I'm at now. I really, for me, game was about completely just changing the environment that I kind of came from. I grew up in an extremely rural, really basically a farm is really where I grew up. The coolest thing that we did was we raced motocross, we raced dirt bikes, and that was pretty cool, but I lived in a town that literally the sign didn't even have a number of population. It said like uninhabited. It just like didn't even say anything. And that was the closest town. It was like such a small amount of people that there was just nothing really around. The closest town was 2-3 hours away.
What's the name?
The name of the town I grew up? Name of the town I grew up was Elk Mound, Wisconsin, which sounds as hick as you could possibly sound, right? And I didn't even grow up in that town. It was actually called the Village of Elk Mound. I actually grew up about 30 minutes outside of that. It was a dairy farm where we milked cows and shoveled manure and all this crazy shit, right? So I love that there's one clap for shoveling manure. So for me, the closest thing I saw to it was, I'd read like Maxim magazines, and I'd read the different periodicals, and I'd see on TV people having a lot more fun, the type of fun that I wanted to live. So for me, I really just kind of became a computer geek to find a way to get out of kind of that rural area. So first thing I did was I wanted to get to a big city. Chicago was kind of the biggest big city I could get to. So I just really dived into software programming, things like that when I started high school. And my whole goal was just to get out of that as quick as possible. But throughout all of my middle school and high school time, I don't know if anybody of you guys can relate to that, but I really just kind of I wouldn't even say I was a loner. I just didn't have an exact group of friends that I kind of latched onto. I just kind of floated between friends and then didn't really have a specific group that I could just kind of identify with, which caused me to really just kind of carve out in the future the type of identity that I wanted to have, because I was really coming from a place where, I was a virgin until I was 21. I didn't really have a core group of friends. I didn't really have any tie to my school. I didn't really have any sort of alumni tie. So what that did was that kind of forced me to catapult myself into a bit of lifestyle design into what I wanted to have. I never really even thought that social circle game or cold approach pickup or anything specifically was going to be my path to having the success I wanted. I just knew that I wasn't achieving it and I wanted to go for it. So what I immediately started doing was finding role models. Modeling is a huge technique that you can use to identify people who are having success in an area that you want to have success in, and then adapt and improve to that way. I knew that there's definitely certain things that guys that I knew were having success in, and I didn't really care if I was going to follow them in a way that was going to achieve certain level of success in other parts of my life or not. I didn't really care if I even adapted some of the traits that weren't as positive in those guys. I just knew that there's certain guys that were making the kind of money I wanted to make, certain guys that were hooking up with the kind of girls I want to hook up with, and making the kind of male relationships that I wanted to make as well. I read a bunch of like Maxim magazines and other things like that when I was a kid, and I realized that there was other guys achieving the lifestyle that I wanted. It just wasn't me. And I knew I was a little bit ahead of the curve at the time too, because I was 14, 15, 16 at the time. I didn't find game until I was 20, but 14, 15, 16, I realized that there's all these different movements out there of guys trying to become nightclub promoters, guys trying to be entrepreneurs, guys that wanted to have a lot more success than they're currently having, and being happy and content, they didn't really care as much about compared to achieving a lot of success. So for me, that's exactly where I identified with. So I basically researched as many types of guys in different cities that were having success, whether it was nightclub promoters, restaurant owners, entrepreneurs, and I decided to just model my entire life after them. And I decided to take up every habit that they had, whether it was clothing, whether it was business related, whether it was friendship related, nightclub related, whatever it was, I would just embody all those traits and I would just tackle it and go forward without really any sort of hesitation. Even if it meant that I would change who I was quite a bit. I find a lot of guys don't want to change who they are. They want to keep being themselves, but then they want different results. I didn't really care about my identity or who I was at the time, because I knew I just wanted to keep breaking out of that, and I knew that all I really wanted was a certain specific type of result. And that was a lot of beautiful women in my life, a lot of cool guy friends that I could either mentor or get mentored by, and then achieve a certain level of success each year and let that grow and grow and grow. And then what ended up happening is the founder of the tech company that I was recruited to work for when I was 20, he actually knew all the, the big pickup artists. He knew all the big dating coaches. He really kind of mentored me and kind of introduced me into what is game and all this whole community type stuff, right? This was before the TV show. This was before, way before this stuff got famous on YouTube. And about a month later, I basically told him that I wanted to pursue this, and I just kind of left my tech career and my software development job, right? And I was like, this is really what I want to do. So immediately, I knew that I didn't exactly know which specific guy was going to be able to help me achieve this, but I did know that I would see guys that would have the type of results that I wanted. So I made it my life's mission, basically, to find as many naturals, to find as many pickup artists, to find as many guys that were having the type of success that I was after, do as much as I could to model what I was doing after them, and then achieve that kind of level of success. So that really was an 8-year journey, 9-year journey in just modeling everything I was doing after them. And I basically spent about 6 months with a couple guys specifically in different cities, model exactly what they were doing, and look at the results, examine the progress that I had made, and then keep what I liked and ditch what I didn't like. And what I kept coming back to is this concept of social proof that is it's a very old pickup concept, but it's something that some guys really dabble with, but they don't really run with to the degree that I saw that I could run with it. Social proof kept coming around in every single guy that I would meet in the main consistent factor that would bring high status guys into his life and really attractive women over and over again. Social proof would always really win over everything else. Social proof is essentially the concept of having a lot of high status people in your life that respect you, look up to you, and are really willing to be around you. It goes a little bit further into pre-selection. That means having a lot of women that admire you, look up to you, and want to spend time with you. So social proof for me really was the answer to everything. It's why I used to have this quote, which is Vegas fixes everything. And every time I would travel to a city, or I would date girls in DC or Toronto or New York or whatever it was, I remember I was dating this girl in Dallas, and I had a lot of cool guy friends in Dallas. Some of my best wings are in Dallas. It's one of the most underrated game cities that there is. And I remember I was going through like some emotional or personal stuff, and I just remember, Vegas fixes everything. And I kind of would keep coming back to Vegas, and I was wondering why Vegas just kept fixing things for me. And I realized there's just such an immense amount of social proof and social capital in Vegas that it really solved a lot of my problems. And I started taking that down, breaking that down, and then basically taking those exact same traits, putting them into other cities and into friends of my lives and clients of my lives, and I would show them exactly how to take that social proof, inject it into their life, and it would really just fix a lot of things. A lot of the mindset shifts that a lot of guys talk about, a lot of the abundant mentality, a lot of the entitlement, a lot of these other things take a lot longer to solve if you just look yourself in the mirror and try to solve these problems individually. But if you cure them with social proof and you kind of flank the issue with creating a high status lifestyle for yourself, all of a sudden what you realize is your core confidence really goes through the roof, and you don't have to do as much game, you don't have to do as much personal development, you just kind of embody those traits inadvertently, accidentally. So I really kind of developed a quest to get as much social proof as possible. I decided to really tackle all different types of guys that have social proof, whether that was nightclub promoters, celebrities, social media celebrities, females that have a lot of social proof, guys that are entrepreneurs that somehow just have social proof, guys who accidentally have social proof, pickup artists that had social proof. And I just took every single thing that I saw they were doing, I put it in my own life, and then I also tested how duplicatable it was. How much could I show somebody else how to do that? And then this is in cities like San Francisco, New York, even in LA, Dallas, different cities that weren't even as wild and crazy as Las Vegas. And the techniques that I came up with were really techniques on how to get as many high status people into your life so that you became high status yourself. And that's really what I've formed, and that's the basis of really what I'm doing. What you want to understand is the more high status that you can make yourself, the more social proof that you can create around yourself, the more fulfilled you are, the happier your game really becomes without you having to try to do it. I spent a little bit over a year purely working on Intergame several years ago, and I was basically with a lot of other people that were, we were all trying to drink the Kool-Aid and just really get fulfillment just off of Intergame alone. And what I realized is that the more that I did that, the more that I just kind of created this facade of happiness, facade of confidence around myself. The only real way that I created true fulfillment within myself is creating this social proof, because I was the only way that I could really create this type of consistent results that wasn't very shakeable. This consistent level of results that didn't really fall short. That I was able to just kind of keep powering through with it. Has anybody here actually build any sort of social circle game or social proof in LA? Besides Hansel? What do you do?
I would get social circle, I have a couple friends that are promoters at Hyde and Bootsy and Warwick and stuff, so
cool.
it's cool because I'm around a lot of like high value people, and I'm able to like you said, like model and just like learn from them.
Yeah. Who in here goes to Hyde and Bootsy? Raise your hand really high. Bootsy. Raise your hand. Who goes to Hyde and Bootsy besides him and her? Raise your hand. Hyde or Bootsy? Raise your hand. Or Warwick. Or Hyde, Bootsy. There you go. Besides Alfonso. There you go. Hyde, Bootsy, Warwick, or what's that? Or nice guy. Raise your hand. Yeah. So hold on. What's that? Yeah. Or One Oak. Yeah. Those spots right there. Raise your hand. Okay. Raise your hand if you've never even heard of these places at all. Period. Cool. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? Cool, you can put your hand out. So that alone is the scrap whatever else I was going to talk about, and now this is what we need to address. Just throw that right out, right? Here's the thing: if you let's start with square one. Whatever game topic you learn or address, and you don't know what those 5 establishments are in the city of Los Angeles, nothing else matters. Period. Right? That just doesn't matter. There's no other place that's going to be valuable to get you the kind of results you're after. Whether you like tall girls, short girls, nightclub girls, non-nightclub girls, sluts, saints or sinners, it doesn't really matter, right? Innocent girls, whatever you like, that you have to know at least the venues that you're supposed to be able to go to, right? That would be Cold Approach and Social Circle Game 101. Okay? But how do you actually know where those places are? You can't really, I'll tell you what, you can't really go on Yelp and look up the best type of nightclub. Usually the types of clubs that are the best in each city. My favorite club in New York, for example, has like 15,000 like 1-star or like even less than 1-star like ratings. It's kind of funny. Because it's the meanest door or the whatever it might be, right? So they have some of the nastiest ratings and reviews. So how do you actually find that, right? Well, you have to go up to people that are, you have to go up to, what I like to do is find exactly the type of girl that I like and look at whatever guy is standing next to her and then literally make friends with that guy, like genuine friendship with him, because he knows exactly what he needs to be doing in order to get that type of girl into his life. So he's going to have other guy friends I want to associate with, and he's going to know how to get those kinds of girls into his life. So you take a club like One Oak, for example, right? It's about the worst nightclub in Las Vegas, but it's the best nightclub in New York and LA, in my opinion. So, well, how do you really know those kinds of things? You only know those kinds of things by associating with people and role modeling yourself after guys that you want to be like and that you want to become. The quickest way I've ever gotten results in any part of my life is taking a guy that I want to be like, role model, take all the decisions that he's doing, make those same decisions, have suspension of disbelief. Even if I think that a certain thing that he's doing isn't cool, I'm still going to do all those things and then escalate myself forward and have success that way. So if you're not going to the place that he just mentioned, there's no other pickup concept in the world that's going to help you if you're not going to at least those places.
People that show up to the parties for the I guess the important people that show up there. I'm wondering also some other names of places you go around in LA, some clubs.
Yeah, so like Karma's a party organization, right? So Nick Owens, co-founder, Papa, he used to be involved in Xeni, which is kind of a Karma before Karma, right? I mean, every Karma party you should go to, and you should hack it. You should find your ways to be able to network your way into these parties, okay? Start with the nightclubs where the people who are going to those kinds of parties are just attending regularly anyway. Start with Babes in Toyland. Babes in Toyland you can go to so you guys notice the attractiveness of the girls in some of my videos? Babes and Toyland. You guys ever notice how attractive those girls are? If not, take a look at my videos. Most of the girls in my videos are, you can't find at a local nightclub or local bar because the videos were taken in events like what we're just describing here. The Babes in Toyland. Babes in Toyland, not and Toyland, right? Babes in Toyland. It's you can literally get into it for buying a toy and donate it to charity while you're at the event. Right? I mean, yeah, exactly. You feel good about it at the same time.
Warwick or W-A-R?
Warwick. Just Google it. It will correct it for you. What's that? I'll just put them on the inner circle. That way, maybe you can get on the inner circle without sucking anyone's dick. So, yeah. I'll make a post on the inner circle about it. Yeah. I mean, I'm in LA at least once or twice a month, and I go to all these venues myself. So, the second I start changing which venues I go to, those are the ones that you should be going to as well, because we're all kind of going after the same goal, right? There's really only 4 or 5 nightclubs I would ever walk into in Los Angeles. The rest are just rubbish. They're just garbage. There's just no point, right? It's not a nightclub city, right? It used to be when Crest and Ledoux were around. This was a nightclub city, but it's not anymore. You'd be better off going to Katana or some high-end. I don't even know if that place is open anymore. Some like really high-end like, what's that? Yeah, some Katana or some high-end restaurant, like Nice Guy, for example, right? Laurel Hardware for a long time was the best place to meet girls. It'd be better off going to something like that rather than some nightclub, because then it's just not really a nightclub kind of place, right? You had your hand up. What did you say?
I was going to ask you to list all those places.
Yeah, just check out the Inner Circle. I'm going to add it within 24 hours. I'll add it to the Inner Circle. Next up, the play. Okay, so how did you get into those places? How did you meet those people that are promoters there? Because here's the thing, once you identify, and I'm going to give my examples on how I did it as well. I have a lot of videos about how I did this. You know, I just did a 4-day thing in New York. Well, it's supposed to be 3 days. We stayed there for like 6 days. I did this whole thing in New York on how each night we'd go out and I would talk my way into a nightclub without any social proof, without any sort of pretense of me knowing anybody there. I would take my film guy, and we would just walk into nightclubs, and I would just talk my way in. And I talked my way into almost every single one of them except for one, which is the one that actually had the most social proof at. I told myself I had a rule I wasn't going to actually use any of my pre-selection or social proof to get into the club. And I recorded the whole thing of what I said verbally to get into all these nightclubs. And I didn't dress that sharp. I was very humble about the whole thing, just to show you guys how easy it is to just talk your way into any nightclub or any setting. Like, it's really not that complex. As guys, we make it a lot more complex than it actually needs to be. But if you focus on high barrier to entry game, you're going to have a lot more success. High barrier to entry game is you take the thing that's the hardest thing to do. For example, a nightclub is the hardest nightclub to get into. Once you can talk your way into that nightclub, the game becomes extremely easy, because every girl knows what you had to do to get into that nightclub. She knows that it was a more difficult place to get into. It's very easy to game girls and build commonalities with people at a very high-end event, right? Like one of the Karma parties, for example. Every girl is extremely friendly. I was supposed to be in Jamaica this past week at a thing called Paradise Challenge with like 50 to 75 naked models. They're all 9s or 10s, a bunch of videographers. If you follow my buddy Michael Sartain on Snapchat, his entire Snapchat this week has just been these naked girls. But I've had to film this product and come talk to you guys. So this is more fun. This is more fun, right? But once you find that out, right? For example, I sent a couple students, Vegas immersion students, down there with these girls in Jamaica, and he's messaging me these Snapchats of every single girl being super nice to him. Every single girl, 100% number close ratio, 50% kiss close ratio, right? They're hooking up with these girls left and right because just the high barrier to entry of him being able to knock those walls down and be able to associate with these people, that makes the game that much easier. So when you're actually at One Oak here, or Bootsy Bello, for example, or Warwick, they're all extremely nice to you. It's not lonely at the top. It's actually extremely nice at the top. The further up you go, I feel like he'll say it to every single sentence I say. That's awesome. I need a machine to just say wow after everything I do. That's awesome. Yeah. That's better than modafinil. So essentially the thing is this. The first time I ever got into Oak, I was in New York. I was like, it was very confusing. I was like, there's no way it's always going to be like this. First time I ever went to Oak was in New York City on a Thursday, and it was a Sunday. It was a Sunday night Oak party. And every night, it's on Sunday, every single table that's there is all free for the people that have them, and it's all models who are 5'11" taller. It's like a very typical. New York has a very judgmental height thing against girls. I don't really give a shit, but it's like everywhere you go, you're like looking up, and it's all just 5'11" or above, like models everywhere. Models that aren't like famous models; they're all girls that are like trying to become models. And there's a couple of things about they're kind of the cause of that, right? Because every promoter in a city like that, they bring 5 to 10 girls that are models to the nightclub, and they get these free tables. Well, if you just know that, it suddenly gets a lot less intimidating. Now suddenly you're not walking in the night. Like, I see guys getting scared when they walk into a club like One Oak, and they're just intimidated. They're just confused, because they see all these pretty girls, they see all these guys, and they're just kind of trying to go up and cold approach these random girls. No girl at any of those tables will go home with a guy from a cold approach, because they all live together, and they usually live with that promoter. It's called a model house, right? LA doesn't have quite as many as New York does, but 100% of those girls cannot be cold approached because they're all living together. They would lose their potential income. They would lose like where they're staying. They would lose their friendships. Like, it's just too much. There's too much opportunity cost to then just like leave with some random guy from that social setting. And the prettiest girls that are there, the most high value, high status girls that are there, are all a part of this group. So it's just almost impossible in that kind of setting. But then once I got ushered to one of these promoter tables, I just sat there the whole night. Everyone comes up to me and they're like, oh, who are you? What's your name? Do you want a drink? Do you want to meet this other person? I was just like, yeah, sure, I guess, okay. And I didn't really do anything special, but all of a sudden my night's going so much better than any other night that I had just cold approached, right? Hey, what's up, bud? Good to see you. My night was just going a lot better than if I had just cold approached any of them individually. So for you, how did you find out that those are the spots, and how did you meet those people?
It's like once you kind of meet like one guy that can get you in, then you sort of meet like other high value people, and then once you build a rapport with them and stuff. So like,
Yeah.
from one promoter who's like being mentored by like an owner, like one of the owners of Hyde, then I met him, and then he has other nights in other places, and these other promoters have other nights at other places. And
Exactly. So essentially what he said is, once you meet one person, then you'll just start meeting and being introduced to every other one. I basically call it getting taken under their wing game. Right? What ends up happening is, and this happens to me on a daily basis, where I just get taken under the wing of somebody else, and I really don't have to do anything. I have a couple business connections that I just got taken under the wing of. I have this retail store in Vegas, this makeup store. I have no idea what I'm doing with any of it. I just am taken along to all these meetings. I just get to learn from this guy for the past 2 years now. Maybe one day I'll have my own business in that kind of industry, but I'm just learning from it. When it comes to nightlife, I met one guy in Vegas. His name's Lamborghini Alex. He doesn't actually set foot in any nightclubs. He won't ever go into them, but he knows everybody everywhere. I met him because he pulled up in a yellow Lamborghini outside the Wynn Hotel. This was my first year in Vegas, I think, maybe 7 years ago. And he had the most beautiful Hispanic girl walked out of the passenger seat, and I saw him like tipping or paying the valet. And I told my buddy, we have like 30 seconds to talk to this girl before he sees what's happening. So I just went up and talked to her, failed miserably. And then he basically thought it was kind of funny what I was doing. They walked into the Wynn Hotel. I bumped him a few hours later at Rhino, strip club in Vegas, and I saw him, and then he basically called me out. He's like, "Hey, you were that guy that was hitting on my girl." I was like, "Yeah, I am. What's up?" And then he was like, he was like, you want to do a shot or whatever? And at the time I wasn't drinking anything, and he was drinking a bunch. And then in recent years we've switched, so it's kind of funny. He went all like feng shui and like woo, and now he doesn't drink at all. And before he, before he did, so it was kind of funny. But basically the whole introduction happened because I was hitting on this dude's girl who had a lot of access in Vegas. And I really didn't meet any other people. I just drove through his network. What ended up happening is I said, "Hey, can you get me into excess?" And he's like, "Sure, I'll get you to excess, no big deal." And it was kind of an odd occurrence. It was an odd occasion. I just realized, hey, if I just collect this guy, if I just bond with this guy, something good's going to happen from it. So he said, "Yeah, here, let me introduce you to the guy." And it turns out I was the general manager of excess at the time. And the guy immediately sat me down it's called table 6, right? So at nightclubs, each table has a number. So you should get to the point where you have these escalating goals, right? Where the girls that you really want to talk to, they're not on the dance floor. Anybody asks me about dance floor game, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. There's actually a guy in LA who's really good at teaching dance floor game. It's just, for me, it's like the dance floor or the bar or the hallway, I just ignore all of it because there's maybe 5 tables in any nightclub that has girls that I actually talk to. That anywhere else is just this kind of general no man's land. So what I show you guys is how to actually get to those exact spots, how to get to those tables, how to know the topography of the nightclub. For cities like Vegas and Miami, I give all my guys maps of each club so you can actually see which table number it is. So when you go and talk to the staff, you can say, "Oh, I'm at table 7, I'm at table 8. And then they'll see that and they'll just walk you right to that table. Right? Each club has an owner's table, each club has a promoter's table, where it's kind of a generic random table that nobody really cares if you're there, as long it's just unlimited free alcohol. It's just unlimited people just coming through there and networking, and just who are just kind of in what's called the industry. Well, I'm not really in the industry. I kind of work in nightclubs. I technically work in nightclubs. I just don't work at nightclubs. So it's one of these things where I'm just, as long as you don't cause a problem. I have these drills on how to get guys going to tables, for example, right? One of those involves taking the bottle of alcohol that's at their table, having somebody else take a photo, and then you pouring the alcohol in the people's mouths that are at the table. Well, it's very easy to do that when you're not actually trying to take anything yourself. If you're coming up and trying to take a drink, if you're coming up and trying to hit on their girls right off the bat or cold approach their girls, suddenly their walls come up and they get very defensive. But if you just meet one guy at each venue that you want to go to, and that guy takes you under his wing, he's going to introduce you to everybody. It's shockingly easy when you meet that one guy and all of a sudden you start seeing how many introductions that guy is giving you to all of these people. And what you have to understand is a lot of people have this fake abundant mentality, right? It's so easy to look yourself in the mirror, give yourself all these positive affirmations, but then actually have no girls around you. It's very easy to tell yourself that you're a certain level of confidence, but then not actually have it. What's challenging, or what people think is challenging, is to actually have those girls around you. But if you meet one guy that actually does have an abundant mentality, one guy who actually does work at a nightlife establishment, one guy who does work at the clubs we just mentioned, what he's going to do is he already has all the girls that he needs. He's got too many. He'd rather meet some guy that's not going to be a weirdo and then bond with that guy all night, right? One of my best friends in LA is a nightclub promoter here. I threw a party. I had like 6 hours to throw this event at Owen's Old House. And I remember I had like 6 hours. It was like an hour before we came to LA. I took some of my Vegas immersion guys here. I used to do these like once a month social circle parties in LA for my Vegas guys. And I remember I was like, all right, fuck it. Let me see how many people I can get to this party. I texted one guy, and at 2:30, 80 girls showed up and 15 guys showed up. And I videoed most of it. I made one text. He texted me back. I think I just responded 1 or 2 more times, and then that's all the work I did for this event, because he wanted to set this up, and he only made a few texts himself. But it wasn't a lot. I realized I didn't want to have to go out and like go promote and recruit for this party. I didn't want to put in all that effort or all that work. I just knew the one guy that was able to do it. This one guy, me and him shared a few jokes, we shared a few drinks together, and then he wanted to do all of the rest. What you guys have to realize, this game is so much easier than you walking up and randomly putting in all this work yourself. It's a lot easier than that, because the guys that we're intimidated by, the guys that are the high school quarterbacks, those guys are now these nightclub hosts that want to actually help you. They're these restaurant managers that want to help you. The best place right now to pick up girls is Toca Madero. Toca Madero. You guys know where this place is? What is it? Toca Madero, yeah. Buddy of mine uploaded a photo from there with like 30 like super hot Instagram models. And it was just like, yeah, casual Tuesday night out. It was just amazing. It's like a little taco shop, right? It's not anything that special. Any one of you can just walk into this place. There's no line to get there. But the girls I was seeing in this thing are famous music video girls. They're in the girl from the G-Eazy video was there. She's the best friend of a friend of mine. The brunette there, she works at Warwick. She was there. Like all her girlfriends were there, and it's just like a little taco shop. Well, why are you out? Like, why are you gaming on the beach when these girls are in just these little pockets of places that you guys can go talk to? And also, this guy, like the guy that I know, he gave me free tickets to EDC, and he gives me for any of my clients in Vegas Immersion, they all get free EDC tickets if they attend that month, because this guy just loves pickup. And he just happens to know all these girls that are at this taco shop. He laughs. He's like, why do you take your guys to nightclubs ever? Like, this is stupid. Just go to these pre-party places where we're having dinners, and like we're having these comp dinners, right? SDK is another one of them, right? He's like, don't ever take, he literally yells at me for taking guys to nightclubs. I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I kind of have to, because they kind of expect it. But he's like, yeah, but don't. Just like, don't take them to nightclubs. Just take them the taco pre-party, take them this other thing. He just has this list of places in each city that he goes to that's just way more effective to meet attractive girls. He's like, I mean, it's funny to me, because this is a guy that he hooks up with way more hot girls than I ever could dream of. He hooks up with more, like, I mean, we're talking like 4 to 5 hot girls a day. Like, he just crushes it. And like, I don't even know how he has the time for it. And, you know, maybe not like every day of the week, maybe 3-4 days a week he's doing this, right? What a loser. Exactly. And I mean, it's so funny, because he has the same excuses and problems that I have. Guys come up to me all the time. They're like, how do you hear in a nightclub? It's too loud. It's too dark. How do you get in? He's got all these same things he asked me about. He's like, how do you guys even how do you PUAs here in the nightclub? And I'm like, oh, you don't really. You just kind of stand closer. And he's like, yeah, don't even worry about it. Just go to these other places. He gives me this huge list of places that are, you know, all the pre-party and post-party spots of One Oak, Warwick, Bootsy, all those kinds of places, right? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how simple that part is. And then how did you meet that guy in the very first place?
So my roommate, he's actually a photographer, so I'm also a trainer, so like training girls and him.
Hold up, guys, we'll get to it in a second, hold up. So for your roommate's a photographer, let's look at that one, because that one's a good one, right? Yeah, so how do you meet these guys in the first place, right? Hold up, guys. If you have a question, raise your hand. Otherwise, hold up. How do you meet these guys in the first place? Because it's sometimes the biggest problem I see guys struggle with is that how do you get started in the first place with doing any of this? It's one thing to already have a snowball that's packed and to watch it roll down the hill. It's another thing to actually pack that snowball in the first place. The biggest challenge really is realizing that you have to flank the issue. You can't just drive forward. Even the type of girl that you're into, you can't just. It's very rarely can you actually just randomly approach that perfect girl that you've been dreaming about for a long time, because you just don't see her very often. So in terms of this, when you actually are trying to get into a high-end nightclub, the worst you could possibly do is walk up to that nightclub and talk to them at all to try to get in. The second worst thing is walk up to that nightclub with a bunch of girls and then try to get in. That's one of the biggest myths I think I've ever seen. When I walk up to any nightclub with a bunch of girls, they're usually, what they do is they open the rope for the girls, and then they close the rope and they say, all right, well, now how are you going to get in? They don't like it's such a myth. I've never really had that whole thing happen to me, not even like one time. I remember I tried to do it at Pure once, when Pure was still open in Vegas. I walked up with like 5 or 6 girls, and I'm all excited. I had my PUA pants on, and I walked up to the nightclub, and I'm like, you know, what now? And then the guy was just like, all right, here. He let the girls, he's like, yeah, it'd be $150 cover for you. I'm like, but they're with me. He goes, well, they're with us now. And I was like, oh. And thanks. You know, what do I do now? You know, it was a very weird situation. The worst you can ever do is just walk right up to that venue. He said his roommate is a photographer. DJs and photographers are the two best people to befriend. You befriend the DJ and the photographer for a couple reasons. One is both have an odd amount of access. Photographers have an odd amount of access because they're able to bring a huge professional camera into the nightclub, so they just have all this perceived value, even though nobody really respects them that much in the club. Right? The club doesn't really care. No staff member really likes them that much. They're kind of tooled on a little bit. They don't make any money at all, really, because there's 100 other photographers that are ready to do exactly the same job behind them. But what ends up happening is they're usually photographers that are just kind of degenerates. They like to drink and fuck a lot of girls. A videographer in Vegas, who's a good friend of mine, he literally just tried to hook up as many girls as possible. His day job is a bartender. Vegas is probably the only city where your day job, your 9 to 5 can be bartending. And then at night, he just does all these free videos for people. His whole thing is he's made a lot of these Instagram girls famous because he just shoots their videos for free. Every time he brings camera equipment to a nightclub or to a shoot with a girl, he's got a suitcase that has a custom bar in it. So he goes and he basically carries this suitcase around with his camera gear and then just asks them what type of drinks that they want and creates this mini bar situation while he's shooting photos. And everybody just loves it. Everybody just has a really good time. But the DJ and the photographer, you can make friends with DJs and photographers because they can't really do anything for you. Rarely are you going to be able to like take value from a DJ photographer. So by the nature of that relationship, of you befriending them, they're just going to be able to get you into nightclubs. They're going to get you into these events that are happening. Plus, DJs and photographers know all the events that are happening without you having to go up and look up all this crap. I make friends with DJs and photographers because I don't want to have to go and look up all the different events that are going around town. I just want to be texted. I want to be begged to go to these events. I want to wake up to all these different text messages on my phone of girls that I met last night that want to get in touch with me, not me having to figure out some clever text message. And I don't want to have to go and like Google all the different events that are happening around town. I just want people to tell me exactly where those are to save me time so I can do the rest of the shit that I want to do in my life. When you take a DJ, DJs have an interesting situation that just you showing up is you supporting them. So, because most DJs aren't Tiesto, most DJs aren't Chainsmokers, right? Most DJs, once a month you might have a club that has that type of DJ talent, right? The rest is just local DJs that are probably, roommates with this guy and a photographer, right? It's that simple. So you have to understand though is most DJs have a comp table. They have an area that night that they're able to bring their guests to. A DJ has about an unlimited guest list, right? Usually, all right? Obviously different venues, different parties are different, but the crazy social proof that you can get by being friends with the DJ of that venue is hysterical. It's unbelievable. Because what ends up happening is when they say that, when you go up and you actually say that you're on whatever DJ's list, not only will they walk you to the nightclub, they're going to walk you exactly to whatever table that DJ's with, sometimes the actual DJ booth. So just the act of you standing there, the Snapchat I did a couple weeks ago, maybe it's the Snapchat I did a couple weeks ago with a pretty graphic one. Yeah. So yeah, for those that aren't following my Snapchat, like 90% of my infields I post right on Snap, and then if I don't post, after they get off Snap, it takes months for them to actually come out, right? So I pulled, it was a total of 5 son. There's me and 4 girls. One girl I've already been sleeping with. The other 4 I met the day before at the pool party, and the entire way that I was able to make that happen was purely because of the social proof of me being in the DJ booth of the pool party that was there. I just walked into the DJ booth. I didn't even do anything that fancy or special. I just walked into it, and then because I was at that DJ booth, I grabbed the microphone from the DJ and I gave it to my buddy and I said, just say my name a bunch of times over the thing. And he was like, it was Michael, and this was all in the Snap. You can all see it right there. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, what do you want me to say? I go, I don't care, just say my name and then mumble. I don't care, whatever. Just make sure my name is clear. And then he's like, okay. So he just started saying Luke into the microphone, and then everyone started screaming because anytime you say anything into a microphone, people start screaming. And like I was super out of it that morning. I was like tired. I was wearing like a dress. This thing that I do, I'm regularly like on Saturdays, I'll regularly show up to the pool with a dress shirt and shorts because I didn't know, like I was just kind of like woke up in a hurry and have to like rush to the pool. And then I asked the DJ if I could have one of his hats, because at this specific pool, they have the DJs wear these like sailor hats. I was like, all right, let me wear one of those hats. And so the hat alone, he's like, sure, fuck it, I'll give you a hat. So he gives me a hat. So it's the 2 DJs are wearing the little sailor hat, the boat hat, and I'm wearing the boat hat. And then I have my buddy just saying my name over the DJ booth. And that alone caused this huge group of girls just come to the DJ booth, try to put the hat on, try to like take the microphone from us. They all of a sudden started dancing, like 4 of them took their tops off and like were covering their tits and whatever. It's a pretty aggressive pool party. And I'm like, I'm like snapping the whole thing, and then like in the whole snap, you see these girls, and I'm saying nothing. I'm snapping every minute of the thing, and you can literally,
I said you're quiet the whole time, just.
Yeah. Just super quiet. Yeah, I mean, he basically just shows it, right? He's like, you didn't say anything. So I'm just holding my snap. I'm going like this the whole time. Every once in a while, I'll kind of look like this. I'll look at this way. Anytime a girl tries to escalate or do anything on the Snapchat, I just kind of like look, like I give this like a weird, scared face, like get away from me. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of do it more, and I move the snap to something else, and I just keep going. I was doing Snapchat 4 months before I actually posted a Snapchat. I was doing Snapchat in public because it just makes them go crazy. I was just deleting snaps. I was like, I have 4 months of snaps that are half are saved, half were just kind of deleted, of me in nightclubs being like, hey, we're on Snapchat, just so I could meet girls and kind of amp it up, like as if I'm on the social media platform, and I had never actually posted anything to my story. I only ever posted something to my story because I did a talk in December about it, and I knew that this was like guys could be benefited from this, and I saw guys weren't using Snapchat, so I started doing it. So now when you see me on Snapchat, I'm not actually saying that much. People actually message me all the time being like, why are you so stoic, Luke? Oh, or like, crazy shit. Like I was we were just a few blocks away from like the bombing that happened in New York, and I was still like this in the snap, just kind of looking at all the like police sirens happening, and then they're like, wow, you're even still stoic in a terrorism situation. It's like, I guess, if that's how you want to look at it, I'm really just not saying anything. So I was in this situation just a couple weeks ago with those girls, and like they're all going crazy over the thing, but I'm not going to entertain it and actually say that much because it doesn't really help anything. I'm already saying, at a certain point, you should be putting yourself in such high social proof situations where anything that you say verbally is just too much game. Right? If you're at that table with your buddies, that the promoters and you're meeting the promoters and the promoters' friends and everything, right? Any sort of joking that you could do, any escalation that you could do is bad, right? I mean, if you're in these situations with nothing but 8s, 9s, or 10s, you don't touch them because any touching at all is creepy. The hotter the girl, the less kino escalation you should be doing. That's just weird. That works on girls in bar settings. That works on girls when you're walking up and down the street. That doesn't work at a high end at the owner's table of Oak or of Bootsy. Right? So what you have to do, so I mean, go for it. Because they're there so they aren't touched. They're there so you don't touch them, right? If they don't want to be kino escalated on. If they're a 9 or 10 and they're at that table, or even if they're not a 9 or 10 and she's an attractive girl with high self-esteem, she wants to physically escalate with one guy that night that she happens to bond with and have some sort of commonality with. She doesn't want all these random guys coming up to her and then seeing which one raises her BT spike. Right? Instead, she wants to be at that one. And that's the other thing too. Like take leading the girl. I did a video in Nashville about why isolation is bad, why you don't always need to isolate. I have a kind of a series of videos coming out of like typical pickup things that you kind of think that are important when you're a beginner. That just are less and less important when you get into the venues that he's gaming in. When you meet a girl at a table at Oak, she wants to be led around the club 0 times. She won't be led around the club. If you try to lead her around the club, she'll wonder why you're so weird. No, raise your voice.
I noticed like the more gamey stuff you do in like those settings, with like the really hot girls, it's like they're just like, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this.
They'll literally tell you, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. Like they'll literally you don't have to do this. They'll literally tell you that. They'll look at you and be like, you don't have to do all this, right? Whether it's jokes, right? Whether it's any sort of self-amusement at all, right? Whether it's any sort of physical escalator, right? Any touching whatsoever, other than like a light high five, maybe a hand to the hip for half a second. Anything other than that starts to be extremely low value. It starts to be very odd, right? You're better off doing a kiss to the cheek and a hug every 5 minutes than you are any sort of physical escalation whatsoever. Okay? The next thing is this. You have to position yourself at all times as if everybody else is watching you. And again, this is only if you're in these types of avenues where you're actually picking up girls that you really could be attracted to. These One Oak, Bootsy, Warwick type girls. Like I said, I mean, this is Los Angeles, the second biggest city in America, and there's 4 or 5 nightclubs maximum that I would actually go to if I lived here. And then even then, there's 1 nightclub per night that I would actually go to. And in every single one of those venues, there's maximum 4 to 6 tables that I would actually sit at or be at. I would not be at the bar, I would not be in the hallway or the dance floor. Dance floor game's great if you know how to dance, but the problem is there's no dance floor at the table. Right? The best type of game you can do at the table is subtle smiles and looks and name exchanges.
Like you said,
What's that?
like you said, positioning, like it's so powerful. Like girls walk by and like you're like in the middle of the table, like surrounded by all the other girls. They can't even get to you. They can't even like, talk to you.
They can't even get in.
Yeah.
What he just said is very important. I'll get to you. What he just said is extremely important, right? Which is when you're at the table, physically being in an area of high status or high value, that builds all the attraction that you could possibly build. The bucket is already full. Any more that you try to do just spills out of the attraction bucket. Okay? Like, looks don't necessarily have to matter. Money doesn't have to matter. Game doesn't have to matter. But at some point, you have to do something. Right? You can't just focus on man to woman in order to build the attraction with the girl. Any form of man to woman stuff in this context that we're talking about, this high value context, any form of man to woman at all, the girl's going to wonder and look at you and be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this here? She's going to be confused. Because notice, if you put yourself in a position that this guy's able to put himself into, that I put myself into, the girls will come up to you and almost 100% of them at some point in the night will ask what your name is. They'll wonder who you are. Because you just happen to be there. Not because you've said anything clever, not because you've done anything else, because you're physically standing there. But using kind of stuff that I've already said earlier and that I'm going to keep following up with you guys, that's exactly the techniques and how to put yourself in that situation. But you're going to notice just physically being there, getting to that high barrier to entry smacked down, getting into the nightclub, getting into that one table area, table 9 at Warwick, table 4 at whatever, right? Just standing there, not even doing anything that particular, not having that big smile on your face, just physically being there, the girls will come up to you and wonder who you are. Especially in a city like LA, San Diego, Orange County. One of my good friends just opened a nightclub in Orange County. I think Sutra just shut down, his nightclub just opened up. And it's called Time. And the thing about the places like that, right, is that I've hung out with this guy once. That's it. I've hung out with this guy one time, and he's messaging me, hey, you know, when are you going to be in town? When are you going to be in town? I want you to come to this club. I want you to come to this club. Well, the second I get there, I'm not going to go to the bar. I'm going to go to whatever table he's set for his invited guests. There's no difference between me or you guys. Every single one of you can do that, and every single one of you guys could be like this guy and just go to that exact table area. Go for it.
So I've been in these environments where the girls generally hit on you a lot more. How do you?
Were the girls generally what?
Where the models hit on you.
Yeah.
You're at these tables. How do you lead those interactions like further and just kind of let them be?
How do you take them further? How do you view?
Yeah, how do you take it further? Do you tend to let them lead you out like when the whole club's closed? Or how would you pull in those situations or lead it towards the goal?
Totally. Who has been in those situations before? So him, who else? Cool. If your hand isn't raised, that's the first thing you should just try to do is get into those situations. Because I'll tell you what, you don't need to fuck your way up. You don't need to go after 4s, then 5s, then 6s, and then eventually gain the skill level to then eventually somehow meet the 10. You don't have to do that. You can just vision board exactly what type of girl that you're after. You can go to these types of venues and then immediately go after the girls that you're into and just actually see if there's a genuine commonality between the two of you. And there will be 1 out of 10 genuine commonalities with these types of girls, and then it's over at that point, right? So what he said is once you're actually in these situations with the model tables or promoter tables, how are you actually pulling these girls and how are you actually closing? Is that a question?
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. So the first thing you want to do is realize the lower pressure, lowest risk stuff that you could do that gets you staying with those girls, that gets you doing attrition game, that's always going to win. That just is sometimes a little bit too slow for me because sometimes that takes 3-4 hours, right? But it'll take you into the realm of that 7-hour rule, right? But what you have to understand is this. Anything that you do outside the scope of the plan of that social circle group is just going to hurt your chances of actually hooking up with them. There's some plan for the night. There's some guided path that those people are set on. There's some whole goal with that. I used to hit on girls that are like STK, Magnum Mondays, Yellowtail. There's like a couple there's always one high-end restaurant that has these comp dinners each night of the week in the major cities. STK Mondays was about the best place to hit on girls for several years. It was amazing. But I was always wondering why I was getting phone numbers but failing with the pull. Well, that's because they're there having this free comp dinner because then the whole point of that comp dinner is so that promoter can take them to some other nightclub and then some other nightclub tour all within the same SB nightclub chain type of situation, right? Well, the real 8s or above that you guys are trying to talk to, their night is already planned for them by their girlfriends, by their promoter roommate, right? So for me, it's much more a matter of making friends with the connectors, staying in till the end of the night, and then my success will happen at the corner of 4 a.m. Okay? Because you're not going to pull directly from that nightclub in that social setting unless you're one of the rulers of that social circle setting, which takes a few weeks, right? That takes a little bit of time. But if you're being hit on in that setting, and by the way, being hit on is literally them asking your name. right? This is literally just kind of having a very general small talk in that setting. So once you're in that area and you're in that general vicinity, they start asking you your name. Just start asking what their plans are. Start qualifying them about their plans for the night, and they're going to tell you the exact path you need to follow in order to hook up with them. Usually there's going to be some food place after. Then there's going to be a pre-after party. There's going to be the post-after party. And that's all going to take place in 45 minutes to 90 minutes at 2:01 onward. And if you just get yourself to be the guy who just the way I know a guy crushes it in each city. I was in Chicago about a month and a half ago doing a boot camp, and I just told myself I'm going to find the guys, because I was also filming for my social circle product. I'm like, I'm going to find some of the guys that are really crushing it in the city. And I went to about three or four, maybe 5 after parties. And then I accidentally found my way on the Coldplay RV bus thing. And I filmed the whole thing. It was pretty funny. And I don't even know one Coldplay song. So it was really funny because it's not like I was like seeking them out. They were just parked outside my buddy's condo. And I realized that each party that I went to, there was like a core group of like 3 to 5 guys that were continually being at that venue, and they were just the low pressure, chillest type of guys that you'd ever meet. They weren't trying to escalate, they weren't trying to pull these girls, but 100% of them closed the prettiest girls that were there, because they just knew that attrition is what the most important aspect of that was. Attrition essentially means that you're just going to stick in the set, stick in the group, until it finally comes down to close, because everyone else is kind of going to fall off the group at some point. Right? At a certain point, some girl's going to get tired, some girl's going to get hungry, some girl's going to have to realize she has to work in the morning, and everyone's going to the whole group is going to kind of disperse as the night progresses, and then as you're building these commonalities, these light, playful banters every once in a while with the girl that you're trying to talk to, then you're going to end up being left alone with that girl at the end of the night. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sweet. Other question that I'm in. I'm in a little bit different high status situations that did take me a little bit more time to come up with. What I just described for you guys can do tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, and it takes 0 finances to do it. I just coached a guy, it was the first time I ever did this. I coached, so I answer 100% of my emails, 100% of my Snapchats, and I coached him all through Snapchat on how to build your own promoter profile. So essentially, let's say you're just, let's say you have no money, or let's say that money is like a concern, or finances are a concern for doing this. I showed him how to basically create this fake promoter image in New York, so it's a promoter Twitter, it's a promoter IG, it's a promoter Snapchat, and he doesn't want to be a promoter. He doesn't care about promoting. But what that does is I told him, he's like, so what do I do now? Do I post some photos? I'm like, do nothing. You'll just be found. Right? It's so much about networking, and people value this whole concept of networking so much that it's really simple to just take these concepts of what these promoters, photographers, DJs are already doing, just throw up some profiles of it, and you're going to notice that these other promoters, that these other girls who want to get into nightclubs are just going to randomly contact you because it says promoter in your login info. It says promoter in your username. They're going to like this guy right now, within about 24 hours, he has access to everywhere in New York that he wants to go to, purely because he just created the accounts. He didn't even post photos. You want to go crazy? Just go out, post some photos of tables that aren't yours. Go out and post a photo of like a big group of girls and just like call them, like, what's your name? They're the Christian Angels. Hashtag. Right? Every time you see a big group of girls, just like throw somebody your camera. You don't even know these girls. Have them take a photo, and whatever your name is, Christians, call them Christian Angels, hashtag. Or say hashtag with my girls, right? And it's like all of a sudden what you're going to notice is that people will just start randomly hashtagging the same thing. And you're going to notice that like you do this a couple times a night. You didn't have to. I taught this guy to do it, and he doesn't have any photos of him and girls. He has no photos of him and anybody else. And all that happened, like ideally you're actually making friends with these people, but he was kind of lazy, so he didn't really want to. So he just wanted to purely use this as a way to get into nightclubs. He's like, how do I do it? Do I bring a bunch of girls to the door at the club? I'm like, no, that doesn't help you at all. The bouncers will laugh at you. If anything, ideally they might let the girls in, but this whole idea of like walking up to a club with a bunch of girls is just a facade. So instead, I was like, it's all about social media. Whether you like social media or not, it just works. So I had him just create his name with _promoter NYC on all his accounts. He doesn't even have any photos on them at all. And within 24 hours, he's like, dude, everyone's hitting me up to get into these clubs. What do I do about this? And I'm like, just wait, you're gonna get hit up by other promoters who want to share nights with you, who want you to send girls his way, and he'll do the same for you. And he's like, but what do I do about me not having any girls? I'm like, don't worry about it. Just wait a couple hours. And all of a sudden, he's having nightclubs just message him to see if he'll come to those clubs. He's just getting invited into all these places. I email nightclubs. If I'm going to a place that I've never been to before, I'll just email the main email of the club and say, hey, do you mind if I get a complimentary tour of the nightclub? I'm a blogger. Sometimes I don't even say that. Sometimes sometimes I just say, do you mind? I'm coming into town. I'd really like to do it. Sometimes I'll even say, hey, my boss is really excited to come check out your nightclub. He's looking to really bring some of his work associates there. Do you mind if I check it out on Thursday? He's going to come on Friday. Okay, sure. You want to? It's like an invited guest, and they just usher you around the entire nightclub. He's like, all right, do you need anything else, sir? Do you need anything else? No, I think I'm good, man. I say, really good bonding with you this whole time, though. Sweet. Yeah, and by the end of that night, you're actually genuine friends with the guy, and you don't have to worry about it. So finances, you have to realize there's so many little hacks like this that you can do that you end up being cooler than the guy that is actually spending the money. You have to understand most of the high-end people that I go with as well, very rarely are they actually the ones who are footing the bill, right? If anything, the club is begging them to come. So very rarely do you see the guy who's, especially like on a night like tonight, Thursday or even Sunday, like the two best nights to actually go out, you're very rarely seeing a nightclub full of guys that are just blowing money into the situation to create this for themselves. It's not a finances kind of thing. You take the guy like what he just described, right? Him and the guy back here and myself, when we're at these model tables, we're spending $0. Don't ever pay for the table. Him and all his friends are not paying for the tables either. Now, if you're at a table with a lot of hot girls, very rarely did that guy pay for that table. Go for it.
So you're adapting to the situation, just taking in, or you say like, I'm giving so much energy back and stuff, and this is like the fair.
Yeah, you can give energy back to the club. You don't have to. They don't care. It's not even in a bad way. They just maybe 10% of the time I give some energy back to the club, or whatever that means. Kind of. I'm kind of crazy. So my Israeli friends call me a niganuv. It means I'm crazy. I'm kind of nuts at the table, I guess. I'm kind of nuts in the high value area. So eventually they kind of, but there's really not a lot of if you look at it in that way of oh, what kind of value are you trying to add? People actually kind of resist that a little bit because they see that you're not just being yourself. So sometimes they look at you like, why are you working so hard to present value or to give so much energy out instead of you just really being yourself in that situation? If you're trying to find some way, I have a couple rules. Like every night I go to a nightclub, I buy some guy a drink that I think he has more money than me, just to network with him. I do that sometimes. That's paid off a lot for me. But I'm not really trying to look for all these ways that I can add value to all these people. I just really look for commonalities more than anything. If you find a genuine commonality with somebody, that's a way better way to add value with them than how much energy can you put into this situation or this other situation. The commonality itself gives you a lot of concrete weight in why you two should actually stay in touch. You're going to find that one strong commonality gives you guys hours of conversation, whereas you try to find some way to add value, suddenly kind of makes it look more like it's almost like a networking situation. Even if it's pure energy or pure fun you're trying to put into it, it's very apparent to people that do this all the time, guys that go out a lot. It's very apparent that you're trying it all, right? Does that make sense? Sweet. Question about that? Go for it.
I'm lucky enough to have a private security job now. It's moving around a lot of Orange County. I made a lot of friends that way, and the one spot I particularly liked was in Newport Beach, where parking spots there could go for hundreds of dollars on the right day, and I have access to a big parking lot because I know all the guys who drive around there and do security there. And when I do start working bigger clubs, because I get more advanced in the company, do you have any advice for who I could talk to while I work security there? Maybe get my foot in the door with maybe somebody who not necessarily let me in the first time, but would know my face and maybe invite me back.
Yeah, what do you work private security for? For nightclubs or for?
I work private security. It's a private security firm, so we work whoever calls us. Right now I've got a contract going to a resort in Newport to work with G-Eazy concert. I'll be there with 50 of my other guys. But it's
that's amazing. G-Eazy will beat us all. G-Eazy is perfect. Yeah. Everything. You should be studying his Instagram, studying every way that guy walks. He's perfect for gay.
And the company actually used to have the contract for where your friend is having. We used to have Sutra. They used to be there, but now I think they're going to start going for the contract to get to the Zeus spot now too.
At time?
Yeah, time.
Yeah. You guys understand too. You guys understand. Most managers of clubs, most owners are PUAs. That's why they're doing it. I used to have this saying with guys. It's somebody's getting laid out of that. Right? The vice president of Insomniac gives me and all of my Vegas immersion guys free tickets to EDC, or $100 tickets, $100 or less tickets, right? Because he's an actual PUA, because he likes this stuff. Why else would you do a stupid business like start a nightclub? right? Because you want to hook up with girls and network with guys. So this whole thing of us doing this in terms of this like secretive kind of thing is so silly to me. Minimum once a week, I get some nightclub promoters actually being like, oh, you're into pickup, that's cool. Would you like to, I mean, like that alone is a pretty solid connection, right? The guy who started that club that I talked about, right? I know him because we started talking about game in a nightclub once. Right? So like this whole thing of us like doing this under the radar pickup stuff, like it's about the coolest, most normal thing you could be doing. Right? It's just, we kind of can make it weird and creepy, right? It doesn't need to be weird and creepy, right? You understand? You could do the weird and creepy inner circle stuff like what Owen was talking about, right? But no, it's just funny, you know? I mean, most valets I know in Vegas, Miami, New York, right? Most of the ones that I know I've met because they were talking game and I started talking game back with them. Right? Most nightclub security guys, they got this, like, I know most bouncers that I know also have a daytime job that's like lawyer, accountant. They have a fairly professional job. They just realized that, you know, they didn't want to like go game all the time. So they decided, oh, let me like do this job. But like, they wish that they were out gaming, but they like any POA they know, a lot of them are like in inner circles throughout America. They'll just let any POA into the nightclub because they like the cause so much. Right? So for you, just realize that like you just like working security for a Jeezy concert, that alone will get you into a nightclub, right? Just start talking about it. Just start talking about the fact that you work security for this club or that club to everybody else, and then all of a sudden the filter is going to naturally progress through that conversation. Commonalities will progress. Common points of interest, common things you guys have done before will kind of progress, and that's going to be how you actually do the people collection, right? Also, just value arbitrage. Like here's the thing. Like there's every time that I ever have access to a table, a photographer, a DJ, an event, whatever it might be, I immediately want to give it out to somebody else and I don't really want to try to take advantage of that event that I could actually attend. Right? So when I have, so basically any event in Vegas, I can get pretty much almost unlimited tickets to for any access, right? Well, I'm only in Vegas when I'm doing my Vegas program. Other than that, I'm traveling, I'm here talking to guys like you. So what I'll do is I'll actually just pass that on to other people, or let's say I have a friend who's doing some really cool event and he's got like Smash Global is happening, right? Like I've got sent a bunch of people into Smash Global, but there's no way I could even possibly attend it with my schedule. But I sent a bunch of people there. So what they then do is they see that that's a lot of value I'm bestowing upon them, so then I get invited to other things, right? So for you, just purely talk about the things that you're doing because you have an easy in, because it's a very common thread that you can talk to them about. The harder part is if you're a guy who has a 9 to 5, maybe it's more of like an 8 to 7, and you don't really have any sort of party kind of or social kind of topic that you can talk to people about, right? Yours is super simple. Go for it.
I actually have a similar vein question. So I'm fortunate enough to have a new job where I'm going to be doing nightlife promotions. Do you have any recommendations? I want to, my goal with that is really taking advantage of that, grow my social career, and meet and connect with the right people. Do you have any recommendations about how I can go about doing that?
Yeah, so you're going to be a promoter, or what's nightlife, what does that mean, nightlife promotions? What does that mean?
So doing promotions for a specific product. So like giving away, or meeting people, giving away coupons, essentially.
Got it. You're going to be like a promo girl.
Yeah, promo guy.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, anything like that, anything like that is a good MacGuffin, right? You know what a MacGuffin is? A MacGuffin is like a shtick. It's a thing. It's a reason to talk to people. For you and anybody else in here who's come up with a good MacGuffin, it's easier than anything else, right? My best friend, he does bikini contests. He's been hosting these things for a long time. 3 years before he ever hosted one, he was telling me that he's like, that's something that he wants to do. And he always would do it basically for free. And the whole point, and now he gets invited basically to help with almost any bikini contest that goes around, because that's his MacGuffin. He doesn't really give a fuck about being paid for it. He doesn't really care about what happens. He's just purely in it for his reason to invite girls to other ones, right? For you, you have a MacGuffin. Your thing is this promotional product thing that you're shoving down people's throats, right? So whatever the thing is, hopefully it's something of value. Hopefully it's something that people actually like. And it's an easy way to talk to people. Everyone else has to either cold approach or build their social circles. You have this MacGuffin. You have this shtick, this thing that you can talk to people about. It's a very easy way to do it, right? And it's something that sounds like it's better than selling knives outside of Target parking lots, right? Go for it.
Okay, say go to a nightclub.
Hypothetically, randomly. Let's keep going.
Say I'm like at a nightclub, and it's like, so I like what you said, like what caught my attention about what you said was talking my way through the nightclub. So So how do you go about doing that, especially when it's more like a, I think what you call like a higher barrier to entry? How do you go about doing that per se? I'm really curious.
We say, okay, talk your way into the nightclub or talk your way through it as you're progressing through the nightclub?
Possibly both.
Okay, cool. So talking your way into So talking your way into the nightclub, right? Talking your way into the nightclub, you need a reason to get in, and you basically want to not give them any reason to say no. So the number one way to get into a nightclub is to dress like all the club cunts, right? So a club cunt is a nightclub promoter, a photographer, a regular. A club cunt is a part of the Fickle 500. A club cunt can be a male or female. It's not a derogatory term. It's literally just a regular person that would attend that nightclub, right? So, in LA, I feel like sometimes it's like dressed like as much of a homeless person as possible to get in the nightclub. You're gonna notice that like club cunts, males will wear like really long, I call them Kanye shirts, like shirts that go down to your knees, right, with like the slit in each side, wear the boots, right, with the tight-fitting pants that to get tucked in, like dress like a club cunt, right, like a club thought, right. You dress like that, and then literally you walk up, and I like to just try to walk into the nightclub without them actually ever having. What's up, bud? I like to do that without actually having them even ask me any questions and just like lift the rope up to see it, and will tell me if I'm acting club cunty enough. And if you're acting club cunty enough, right, you're acting like a club thought, they'll just let you in because of that, without actually saying any long, confusing sentiments. Shorter and sweeter, the better. But it's a lot of fun, because normally I have a lot of social proof when I go into the clubs. When I was doing this thing in New York, I would just go to these nightclubs and just see how club cunty I could be and just talk my way into each one. The next thing is this: knowing one person's name at each club works really well. I'm gonna give you one little trick that I did that's a little bit high risk. When you don't know anybody in the club, ideally you have to come up with someone's name that works there. It's very, very easy. I like to go to one area of the entryway, and I'll simply ask him, hey, what's that guy's name, or who's running the door today? He'll tell me the guy's name. Oh, cool, what's your name? Hey, great to meet you. And then you can just walk straight up to that guy and say, oh, what's up, Jimmy? It's Taylor. He just said that you could let me in. Let's go. And then you could literally just ask one guy what his name is. Just having those two guys' names, that alone can get you in. Another thing you can do is literally just look up the name of the guy who's running the venue, and there's a little trick you can do in your phone where you save your own number as somebody else's name, and you text yourself, and that way when people ask to see a text, you can just delete